Welcome to Living Vividly, the podcast where health, wellness, and curiosity collide. I'm Jackie, the founder of Vivid Health and Wellness, your guide on this journey to living your happiest and healthiest life.
My co-host Daphne, the unconventional dietitian, is always ready to shake things up and bring a fresh perspective to your wellness journey. And we can't forget Dustin, our producer, who keeps everything running smoothly behind the scenes. Together, we'll chat with health and wellness experts along with everyday people who have inspiring stories and practical insights to share. If you're ready to nourish your body, move better, and discover simple ways to thrive, you're in the right place. And hey, if you enjoyed today's conversation, don't forget to leave us a comment sharing your thoughts, and subscribe so you never miss an episode.
We're joined today by Kathryn Mobley. She's the CEO of the Better Business Bureau, serving Acadiana, and business coach. How would you? We're joined today by Kathryn Mobley. She's the CEO of the Better Business Bureau, serving Acadiana, and business coach extraordinaire.
I don't know about that, but maybe business consultant. That's kind of what we usually say. Yeah.
So you have a little bit of background in occupational wellness, which is different than what we normally talk about, but it's also important in like the broad spectrum of health and wellness.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of people in Acadiana are employed and,
Hopefully.
optimizing their wellness in their workplace, because we spend so much time in our workplace. I think that's something that we haven't talked about, but is absolutely worth talking about for sure.
Yeah, I mean, you spend the majority of your lives at work. So I think that's where I got my master's in industrial organizational psychology, because it was you could just do psychology and you could do, therapy or something like that, or you could have an impact with more people in the workforce by just providing a really good work environment for people. And then that impacts their lives and their kids. I mean, if you come home and you're totally stressed out, you're no good to your family, which we all have those days, right? But I mean, that's kind of the gist of it.
Yeah, but if every day is like that, then what's the point? Life is miserable if you spend, like you said, the majority of your time at work, and if it's soul sucking and not adding and taking from your health, and that's definitely a negative.
It's pretty amazing how I've worked in a position that I did not like at all. And of course, whenever I was at work, I didn't like it, but it did, translate into home attitude, and it kind of rippled into every aspect of my life. It wasn't just when I was at work. And in fact, it was even a part-time job, but I despised it. And for that period of time, it was months, I wasn't happy. I just wasn't a happy person. I didn't feel like I was being fulfilled at all.
Yeah. I mean, if you've worked in a toxic environment, it just drains you. It's so bad for your mental health. I've been in toxic environments. I've seen a whole organization in a toxic environment, and you can just see people shrink, it's the thing is from Gallup data is does it energize you or does it drain you? And if you're in that toxic work environment and you're in the wrong fit of a job, then you're just constantly being drained. That's exhausting.
So would that be your level of, is that the measuring stick of if your environment is a good fit for your personal core values? So every organization has their values that it's either well known within the organization or not, but they have values that they stand by. And generally speaking, we all have our own core values. Again, we may have them defined and know what they are or not, but would that be your way of measuring if your personal core values connect and click with your employer's core values? Would be to determine if the job energizes you mostly or drains you?
Yeah, I mean, we could talk about that a lot. There's so many different measuring things you can do in different surveys. There's a Gallup Q12 survey. There's a well-being survey. There's a, I'm just forgetting the name of that one. There's another one that's just, I think it's a thriving survey. It's only 2 questions. So there's things like that you can do in the workplace. But to your point, also establishing, not everybody knows their core values. The thing that I'm learning more and more every time we do a presentation or a training or something like that is a lot of people are not taught these crucial skills. They used to say soft skills, which I hate, but now it's crucial skills, which I love. So that's the kind of stuff, do you know your values? Do you know your strengths? Or do you know what you're good at, what you're not good at? And a lot of people don't know that. They really don't.
So interesting along those lines, I did years and years ago, maybe early 2000s. I read a book called Now Discover Your Strengths, and it had the it was a book, and then there was a questionnaire that could go along with it, and you go through and you do the questionnaire. And so I did that years ago, and then about 10 years later, I retook the questionnaire, and my strengths were exactly the same.
Wow.
There was one that was a little bit different, like the number 5 and number 6 were kind of flip-flopped. But so that is one part of the ways that I helped to learn and discover like what my values were. That's what triggered me to kind of dig into it a little bit more and think like, well, what do I stand for? Like, what is important to me?
Yeah.
And
was it the Gallup Clifton Strengths?
I don't think so.
What did the results of that look like? The personality test, ENFP, is this like 7, 8, C, or like, is there like a, here's your
No,
code?
it was like, these are your strengths,
So
your
it
top
tells
5
you-
strengths.
okay.
See, that
And
had to be
and
Gallup Clifton Strengths. You don't think so? They did
Maybe.
the top 5?
Maybe.
Did
I
it
don't-
have like learner or empathy?
Yeah,
or
integrity.
strategic?
Yeah.
Or that's what I'm a certified Clifton Strengths coach, and that's the one when they say strengths generally. Maybe you didn't realize it. I don't know, but that's
Yeah,
the
I
one
mean,
that
like,
usually
we're talking about
trademarked
a decade or 2 ago. So I don't remember exactly, but it was associated with the book, Now Discover Your Strengths. And the whole premise behind that particular book was we spend so much time focusing on the things that we need to improve and our weaknesses that whenever we lean into our strengths more and use that to our advantage, then our weaknesses, everybody has weaknesses, they tend to kind of hide rather than, have a light shown on them.
Yeah, that's like exactly like I think in my, I don't know, late 20s was when I discovered the Gallup Clifton Strengths. And for me, it was like a game changer because it was like, I'm all head and heart. So I'm very strategic, but then I'm very people oriented. So it's like, it kind of battles sometimes, So once I figured that out, I was like, oh, but it's like, it does, like you said, you can do like your top 5. It's a really easy assessment. And to your point, there's like 20,000 different assessments you can take. But that's why I love that one because it shows everybody's strengths and then it focuses on your strengths, not your weaknesses, which everyone wants to go to because that's what we all do that.
We get hung up on what's bad about me.
Well, it's biological. Our brains just do that. So like, I mean, we could talk about that forever, but once you know that, then you can kind of figure out your values with your strengths. And then when you're looking for a job, it's like, well, is this a good fit for me? If you're someone that's really, really executing, like, you want everything done, but you're more of a strategic thinking person where you have to process everything, like that's a whole different approach. So when you're looking for a job, you have to kind of keep those things in mind or you're in the wrong fit. And then you're drained. So yeah, to your point earlier, it's like you're going to know if you're in the right fit, if you're using your strengths, if generally you're energized. You're all going to be drained at one point, but like generally you're energized.
Right. So what would you say is from an employer perspective or from like kind of looking at the culture of a business, what are some things that you could look for as being positive culture environment?
Yeah, I definitely would tell people to do their homework in the interviewing process. Like, you're interviewing for a job, but I would definitely, if you can, get feedback from the other employees, look at reviews, I would do multiple, like have your questions ready, like try to kind of feel out, like, do y'all value communication? What are the benefits? Like all the basic stuff, but like, what do you do for meetings? Or, I would encourage people to like really investigate the organization just as much as they're going to do it to you. Because like, I don't know the statistics off the top of my head, but if you get into a wrong fit, I mean, employer wise, it's like, I think if you lose someone with under a year, the turnover dollars there are just out of control. From the employee side too, it's like, how much time did you waste? And now you got to find another job. So I would say, yeah, ask questions and like, what's important to you when you're looking for a job.
So I've been in private practice for 15 years. It's been a long time since I've actually looked for a job.
Yeah,
but when
it's totally different now.
Yeah. When I have in the past, it's more like I wasn't interviewing them in the sense of, am I a good fit for them? It was more like, am I good enough for them? Am I good enough to fit in that environment? And which I can recognize now is a very flawed way to look at it. But
I think normal. I think most people think of it.
And even like in younger years, especially whenever you're just like, you need a paycheck.
Yeah.
I need to be able to
job
pay
will
the
do.
bills. Am I good enough to fit into this environment? And then again, like I said, I've gotten into environments where I'm like, this is terrible. This is not feeding my soul at all. And becomes just a downward spiral from there.
Yeah. Well, and to your point, sometimes, you may not have the opportunity to like do all the things I'm suggesting. Like you may just have to get a paycheck and then look for something else better. But like, I guess I would I think our generations, maybe it was like that thought process was like, I just need to find a job. I need to pay the bills. You know, the salary and the benefits were the things that were really important. The younger generations totally flip-flopped. I mean, they're all about the culture. They'll take less of a salary just because of who their boss is, like how the culture is. You know, flexibility is really popular right now ever since COVID. So the younger generations are definitely looking for, like, it's not just a job anymore. It's an environment.
Like the quality of their life.
Yeah.
Because of their job.
Like volunteering, things like that honestly, like, I mean, I wouldn't have thought of that either 20 years ago, you know?
The more well-rounded way to live your life too. Like we shouldn't live to work. We work to live, and work should add value to your life. And I think you said earlier, being in a bad job affects your mental health, but I think it affects your overall health too.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I had so many, like, it's just that heavy stress impact on your body, you know, like
Right.
weight gain, just stress, headaches, and
Lack of sleep.
yeah, vitamin D deficiency if you're inside all day.
I worked in a building that had no windows for a while, and man, I heard about it from everybody, and I'm like, I can't do anything about it. I was like, go outside, take your laptop outside and go, or go to a coffee shop, or like, because I mean, some things you can't control, but yeah, it does really impact you. I'm like, go for a walk real quick when you're on the phone. Like, there's little things you can do like that, but it does. And I think 90%, don't quote me exactly, but it's around that number, 90% of medical visits are due to stress.
I have absolutely heard that.
So that's a lot.
I think most of my medical visits, 90% of my medical visits have been about stress. So I can attest.
Well, it's a lot. We're all like working and houses and kids, and like, that's a lot of stuff we all have on our plates.
Yeah.
I don't think we're really supposed to probably do all the things that we do,
Well,
is what
and-
the data out there says.
Yeah.
Biologically, no.
75 to 90%.
Okay.
That is correct.
Thank
Since I
you.
think
You're welcome.
COVID is whenever I feel like just the palpable stress level of society increased significantly, and it's never maybe dropped down a little bit, you know, whenever we're able to go out and be amongst people, but I don't feel like it's come down to pre-COVID.
Oh, I don't think we're ever going back. I think we're just into like another level. I think everything changed with COVID. It's
Yeah.
like the world, I don't know, post-COVID is totally different.
Almost post-apocalyptic. Like, you might as well.
Way things are going.
Not yet, but
But yeah, to both of your points, I think it's the mental and physical. I love the Gallup data. I've talked about it so much, and it's just like the way Gallup does it from data, from surveys, from all, like, and tell me if we need to go into that because it's in my head so much, but is that there's 5 different levels of well-being. So there's physical, social, community, financial, and career. So you have to look at all those different areas, which I like way more than wellness, because wellness has that, like, I love wellness, but I think some people can take it like, oh, you just have to go to the gym and eat your salad. And like, that's not really what wellness or well-being is really about. It's a whole holistic, you know, so that's what the Gallup data is very interesting. And it'll even show you action items. Like I just did this the other week, where it's action items for your personal well-being and then for your occupational well-being. So like what leaders can do to build a thriving work environment. And then building onto that with the engagement also. So there's a lot of
How
cool
would you
tools out there.
define a thriving work environment?
So it would be, the engagement side is it's a Gallup Q12 survey, and it has 12 simple little questions. And we could talk about that more, but it's really simple things like, do you have the basic equipment to do your job right? Do you have a buddy at work? Do you believe in the mission and the vision of the company? A lot of it's your boss too. Like I think 70% of people leave because of the boss. So you can measure that engagement. And then there's the thriving, which is the well-being. So there's a well-being survey that you can do, and it's really, really simple. Like one of the questions I like in there is like, have you enjoyed yourself lately? Like that's like little, have you laughed? Like,
So not necessarily a work thing, but just life in general.
just in general, like, are you super stressed? Enjoy yourself, or have you laughed lately? It's literally like 8 questions. So then you get that, and then it shows you, are you suffering, struggling, or thriving? So you can do that to yourself daily. You could do it weekly. You could do it monthly. You could do it to your employees anonymously, of course. And then that would show you, okay, well, how are my people doing? Because you could be really engaged, but you burn out, which happens in the nonprofit world all the time. People are like, I'm in it. I love this. I'm working my butt off. So you're totally in it. You're engaged, but then they burn out because they didn't have all their well-being things put in place. So I think that's the shift too. The younger people are wanting, like, Google does it. You see all those companies, they have like, the nap pods, and like they're at a whole different level, but that's why, because they know this stuff and they have organizational psychologists on staff. So they know it pays for the company to invest in their people.
So from a leadership perspective, what would be some things, like 2 or 3 things that a leader could do to work with their employees and to, impact the culture of the environment in general in a workplace?
There's a lot there. Oh my gosh, there's so many things you can do. I think the first thing you'd have to do is get the feedback. Also, as a leader, like HR does this all the time. This is HR. If there's HR people listening, they're like, yeah, I get it. But a lot of times, like, top leadership doesn't get it. So then HR sometimes is in a battle. So it has to start up here. So if you're CEO, you're whatever, you have to have that like brand champion, that person that's going to implement it into the organization. So you have to have leadership buy-in, and then I would get the feedback. So I would start with surveys, which you would also have to be strategic about, because you have to make sure I don't know how big your organization is. If you have a few people, like my team, well, it's really easy. You could just send it out to them. But if you have a huge company, you may have to do it by departments and all these things. But surveys, the engagement survey, the well-being survey, and then see what it says. And then you just start taking action off of that. And you have to take action. That's the thing too. Don't just do it and then like sit on it. That's not going to
I guess any leader wouldn't feel like, they would feel like they're doing the best thing for their team, but to actually get feedback from what the people believe and not what you think the people believe is a major factor.
Well, and I think the anonymity, like it's anonymous. That's a big deal for people, like truly anonymous, because you can do this strictly from the Gallup platform, or people have all these payroll systems. You could do it through that too. I mean, JotForm is free. I use it all the time. The things that come back are really interesting, because it's usually like, I don't have the proper keyboard, but I haven't said anything because I didn't know if that was okay. And you see that, you're like, oh my God, just get a keyboard.
Right.
Like I'm going to buy my people these keyboards, but people don't know they can say anything. Like people don't speak up. I don't know. They just don't. So it's like that anonymous data can show leadership. Well, I could just do these couple little things, the basic stuff. The bigger things, like having your values well laid out, there can be some harder things to implement. And culture change it's not easy. That's for sure. It takes a lot of, and you could be doing your very best, and then like you're doing all these things in your day as a leader, and then you're like, oh God, messed up on that one. But yeah. you just kind of have to keep trying at it, I guess.
So the whole 9 to 5, I've seen or heard of some places, the mythical land of other jobs that get kind of come in whenever you want, leave whenever you want, just aim for this many hours, or kind of,
get your work done.
Get your work done. Mm-hmm. You don't have to be here for no reason, What do you think about that?
I mean, I'm all about the flexibility, especially the younger people are like, if you're a mom, if you're a parent, you're doing all these things. I think it's just, you have to think, like, I know for the BBB, we have to have a certain operating hours that we're open. So like there are things where like, yeah, you guys can do flexibility, but we have to make sure the office is open to the public.
Right.
So like
stores and stuff too. They have to,
just like stores, like retail. Like I think if you can do it, that's amazing. Which if you're more an admin company or something, you could pull that off. But I mean, yeah, to me, I'm like, as long as we're hitting our numbers and we're doing everything we're doing, like I'm all about the flexibility. It just depends if you can really do it or not.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Like with my team is really small, so I'm like, as long as y'all organize the offices covered, like go to your doctor's appointment or go pick up your kids, or it doesn't matter to me as long as we're maintaining those operational hours. And like we have a lot of women in my workplace, so there's a lot of demands on everybody. I mean, men too, but you're usually like going to pick up the kids and doing all these things. So yeah, I'm definitely all for it.
Yeah, I don't think it's a question whether women, we balance a lot more day to day just because of those like domestic expectations.
So I guess there has to be a level of trust. You know, within the team, you have to trust your team and your counterpart that you're working with, but your boss or the higher up, the leader has to also trust that you're going to be able to get your job done, and you know that you're going to, the things that are laid out and implemented are done in a timely fashion. And so we all have to kind of level up an adult.
Yeah. That's the hardest part, I think. Like, as the top, trusting the bottoms doing it and giving them the leeway to kind of float around, do what you want as long as you're getting it done. That
as a
trust
control
is hard.
freak, that is a very difficult thing to do.
Well, and that seems to be like a common theme in leadership, is like learning to delegate, and that's where the strengths can come in too, which I'm overdue to do that, honestly, in my organization. Like I said, you have all the conceptual things, but sometimes it's like, okay, well, what can I actually implement? But I think a lot of leaders, there's even a Gallup leadership survey, which I think is really cool, and it'll show you, okay, maybe you have a harder time delegating, so like what strength could you use to help you with that? Like, I'm a high delegator, so like I can see where people need to do like I can send it out and it doesn't bother me, but that's a high strength for me. So I can see if you don't, like, that would be hard to give things
that
to
is not a
people.
high strength for me.
Yeah, so then you know
gonna do
it, that's
myself.
good. And like we had a executive committee meeting other day, and it was like, let's get an intern. I'm like, that's an amazing idea. I need an intern. But then I'm like, wait, then I got to do the application. Then I got to, you have to do all the things to make it happen. Then I got to train somebody. I'm like, do I have the capacity for that right now? I don't think so, but I love the idea. So I guess that's like the whole point, is like, you may love all the ideas of it, but like, what can you actually make happen? For
so
your
I'm reading a
organization.
very interesting book right now on this topic, and it's called Buy Back Your Time by Dan Martell. And his whole philosophy is that you spend money on the things that are going to give you more time. So if it's editing, you're going to spend money on the editing process. And he has this whole system of how to train, and it is a process, and it takes time. But once you get that initial training phase or that initial process down, then and you're strategic about who you let in, do they match your core values, then you buy back your time, so you have more time to be more creative or to do something that's not just controlling, in my case, controlling all the like nitty gritty factors, like letting someone else do those things.
It's also that fear of wasting your time, because like you have to be sure that, like, let's say you hire them, spend 2 weeks teaching them, spend another 2 weeks watching them, let them go for 2 weeks, and then they're the wrong fit.
Yeah.
And so it's 3 months of
not
wasted
just time, but lots of money goes into that.
Yeah.
Lots of money. And I know that from personal experience, hiring someone who was the wrong fit just because I wanted somebody in that position, and it did not work at all.
Yeah, that whole like old saying, like what is that? People in seats or something? Butts in seats, or like, I just need butts in seats. Like, no, not really.
Sometimes
Actually.
that's worse. Having the wrong person in a position is worse than having no one in the position.
Yeah, because it just puts more work on you. And I think, if you don't really keep a person for at least a year, I can't remember the dollar amount. Well, it's different for everybody because it depends on the salary. But like the dollar amount you lose just in the financial part, not to mention the time part.
Yeah,
so,
just the training process.
yeah, that's
of
a
getting
good book.
somebody
I'll
in
have to
position.
check that one out. And that's where, like, for a leader, the strengths too, if you did the strengths with your team, that's where you can like put them in a grid. There's a whole system you can use, or you could go old school and just put it on paper, and you can, like, when you go to delegate, then you're like, okay, well, my operational manager is very executing, things are going to be done, so besides their job description, and like you actually know their strengths. So it does help you, like, if you do that for your team, it might be pretty cool to be like, okay, this person, the nitty gritty, she's really high on like achiever, which achiever is like, you get things done. Like, you don't mess around. Maybe you have high achiever.
Yeah.
Like, which is also when you have to watch for burnout, because they want everything done, but you can't always get everything done.
Right.
So it is a really cool tool for leadership. I love all those tools for leadership.
We did traction at Vivid, and that was really helpful too, to kind of do the flow chart of responsibilities and
The accountability chart, the scorecard. Like, as we're talking, I'm like, I need to do the scorecard. I need to do this. But like, to your point, there's only so many
accomplishments. Is that what? I can't
It's
remember.
like you put in like, okay, we need to hit this many sales, and you track it every week, or we need to increase engagement, and you put data to it, and then you can see it weekly.
So as an employee, if you're someone who feels like your job is, pretty good, I think as an employee, just like you mentioned with the keyboard, you feel like my voice may not be heard. If I say something, my voice may not be heard, or it's just not like a keyboard is not that big of a deal. I can live with it. But as an employee of a place where you feel like it's a decent fit, what kind of things can you do to enhance the quality of life in that work environment?
Like from an employee standpoint?
From an employee standpoint.
Well, and you actually said one of the Gallup Q12, it's like, do I feel like I'm heard? Like, do I have a voice pretty much? Like, do my opinions matter? I guess an employee, I'm trying to think from that.
So just quit if they don't?
No, because that's the thing is if you survey them and you see that that's high, then as a leader, it's like, okay, I need to work on this. Like, are we having communication in our meetings? Like I'm looking at reworking the way we have our meetings. Cause like when we're in a team setting, it's very quiet, but then one-on-one people are more open. So like, I think it's just like learning the people, and I've done a personality assessment and stuff. And I know now I'm like, oh, well, I have a group of doves, like it's the bird personality. So they're not really as good in a team setting. So it's like, I think it's noticing that and then just like trying to tweak it so you can, your people, and then you do this, say you do that. And then a quarter from then you measure it and you see, did it increase or decrease?
I've heard Brene Brown talk about how in a work environment, if there's not trust amongst the group, whatever the group is, that creativity is not, in a brainstorming session, creativity is down. If I bring something to the table, I'm just brainstorming and something like wild and crazy that feels like not maybe a good fit, but could be talked through. If I bring that to the table and people start saying like, what? That's crazy. That doesn't work. Then the next time I have an idea that may or may not work, I'm less likely to bring it to the table if I don't feel like it's going to be welcomed, if I don't feel like, again, that my voice is going to be heard, or that it's going to be minimized, or I'm going to be shamed for, just a brainstorming idea that, will keep you quiet next time rather than just bring something out.
If you get shut down in a public setting, oh no, your trust just went. I mean, like right. I've seen that, like, it's just amazing to me. It's like, and it's dependent on the leader. A lot of times it's like in a brainstorming, you do have to have a trust environment where you feel like you can actually say things. Like I've been in meetings in a toxic environment where like, the leader would ask like, okay, well, what's the feedback? Nobody says anything. It's crickets because no one wants to say anything because they're going to get shut down, or you're asking for feedback, but is it authentic? Do you really want the feedback? Yeah. Right. So it's like people know that right away, or maybe it's other people in the team that they don't feel comfortable. Like I think on a leadership team, you really have to make sure like your leaders feel that they can trust you and they can speak up. And maybe, like I said, too, maybe they don't feel as comfortable in a group setting, but maybe they're coming to you on the side and saying like, hey, this would actually be a good idea. But like, are you listening to them? Are you just like checking off the list?
I feel like every organization that I've worked at that has that collaborative spirit where even the bad ideas, they're talked through and we all kind of work together for the greater mission of the company. Those have always been the best jobs that I've had, and the best companies. They work better because it's not just the boss is the boss and everyone does the thing. It's like, okay, we all have buy-in. We're all doing the thing. As the CEO of the BBB, you have like special insight into how businesses that operate with trust and integrity, how that affects the consumers, the employees, and everything. I want to talk about trust and integrity a little bit more. Like, what is integrity to you? What would that?
I think integrity to me, that's always definitely been a value of mine, which seems why I'm at the BBB. So it worked out pretty good. But I think it's like I'm doing the right thing for people. I think a lot of times too in the business world, maybe now it's kind of shifting since COVID. Actually, COVID was really good for all of the culture and organizational psychology, like that getting more popular now. But I think a lot of it's like, well, I'm treating my customers right, or I'm taking care of my customers and I'm doing the right thing. I'm also doing it internally. Like, are you taking care of your people also? I guess being honest and like actually walking the walk is kind of how I think of it. I don't know if you guys.
your employees are your biggest asset. Without your employees, you don't really have, unless you're a one-man show, those are probably the people that you need to prioritize over everybody. I mean, that was obviously at Vivid, we loved our clients and we treated our clients well, but when push came to shove, my employees always came first. And I think that's why, I mean, ultimately we ended up closing, but that was beyond my control. You know, that wasn't because our business failed. It was because of regulation stuff I did not want to deal with. But I did not have a lot of turnover, and my employees stayed with me from day one to the last day that we were open because they were treated with respect, and they had the buy-in. You know, all their bad ideas were not always bad ideas. You know, we worked through those things.
Yeah. But I mean, that's proof right there is turnover, absenteeism. I mean, if you have a lot of turnover, to me, like, I guess that back to your original question, even when you're interviewing for a job, what's your turnover rate? You know, like if you have a high turnover rate, woo, red flag.
Red flag, yeah.
Like, or you see people that have a whole team and then it completely shifts and then shifts and then shifts. I definitely see more of that, and I'm not really sure why, but I've been in both profit and nonprofit, and I've seen a lot more in nonprofit, which is interesting to me.
High turnover rate.
Mm-hmm. Very high turnover. It's just it's a very demanding job, and I think I got even more passionate about the whole employee engagement and well-being is like seeing, you know, you're supposed to be doing these good things for people and you're a nonprofit, but then people forget to take care of their teams.
Right.
And then they are maybe highly engaged, but their well-being is really low, and then they turn over. So,
yeah. I
so
can
it's
see
good
that with
you didn't have a lot of turnover.
Yeah. One of the people that I am working with in my private practice, she works for a nonprofit, and lately, since probably, you know, for the past 5 or so months, she's telling me about these extra shifts that she has to work. You know, she's working longer shifts, not necessarily getting always time off for the extra time that she's put in, which in her, you know, what I'm talking to her about is her own well-being and her sleeping and, of course, her food choices and how all of that, when she's working extra shifts, and this is a young girl in her 20s, mid-20s, it's impacting her ability to exercise or do any kind of movement, her social life, her ability to create meals for herself, her sleep, because she gets home at 8 o'clock and then she just wants to like chill for a little while, so she stays up later. I mean, it just ripples into every aspect, and she just happens to be in that nonprofit world. So I can understand that.
Usually, I mean, it's usually pretty demanding. There's a lot to do. So, but I mean, I think I was in startup world too. So there's so many cultures like that where it's busy, busy, busy. And like, yeah, like you may have all these good intentions, but then the reality is like, well, I have to pay the bills, you know, and generally nonprofit, you make a lot less too.
Right.
So like there's people that have to, you know, do other shifts and things like that because I mean, it's nonprofit, but it doesn't have to be that
and there's
way.
less people because the budget's smaller, so
Yeah.
you have to do more with less people.
But I mean, if you have it, and that's like the biggest thing that's suggested is like, if your budget allows, pay your people more, you know, like you can do that. They can make this a good salary. That's, what's the word I'm looking for? I don't know. I can't think of the word right now, but if you have it in your budget, invested in your people is like the recommendation usually.
I think even the jobs that I've made a lot of money at, when they were demanding all of my time and all of my health, I would have given up a higher salary just because my life was suffering. I know that's a hard decision to make for people. Like, obviously you don't want to take less money, but there is a point where it's not worth what you're making sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
I have given up a higher salary to do exactly,
like,
because it got to the point where
but people
none
do get
of this
stuck
is
for a long time.
Oh yeah, and I get it.
Well,
and it's
to
not
find
easy.
a job too nowadays with AI and stuff. Oh my God, it's like a whole different world. Let me tell you, like 15. Oh my goodness, it's like a whole process to look for a job too. So that changed. Like, think about that too. You're in a job, you're miserable, but then do you even have the time to put your resume to, you know, like there's just the reality of life. Like sometimes people can't move that quick. You don't have the options.
So outside of salary, what other things can an employer do to take care of their employees?
Yeah, I mean, basics, salary, benefits, there's a lot of things in the benefit packages that I think a lot of employers, I worked in that world for almost a decade, a lot of people don't even know that's in their package that they can utilize for wellness. So like I would definitely get with your broker, see what you're actually paying for. Like I just found out we have a HR system through one of our insurance people. So I could use that. And I'm already paying for it, but there's so many little things that are in there. So I would recommend like making sure you have all those type of like the systems set up. So that would be like the basic. And then culturally, I mean, it's a lot of times, oh gosh, there's so many things there. I mean, do you want flexibility? Do people want, I think it's getting what your people want. Do you have a lot of working moms? Maybe they would just like a little bit flexibility so they could go to a game and not feel like they're in trouble or something. Mm-hmm. Like you can kind of, I mean, there's leaving early. Like, if you have the capacity to do a Friday leave at 12, oh my gosh, people love that. But maybe you can't do that. So I think you have to take into effect, like, what's my organization? What do I have to operate? And then how can I make people feel like this is what you want? I can do this. But then there's some things you can't do it either, So
I think those open lines of communication are important too. Just knowing that your supervisor or your boss has good intentions and has your back and wants the best for everybody. I think that psychologically helps too, even though like, hey, we have to get this project done. We can't take off early this week, but blah, blah, blah. Like there's communication. It's not just dictating down. I think that goes a long way with employees too.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Just
I think
like understanding each other.
Like huge. And I even think a lot of it, like there's even communication assessments that you can do, which I think is really interesting because a lot of times it is just communication, like, or maybe it's just the wrong setting, or like I said, maybe someone needs it more one-on-one, someone else wants a team setting. Even the way people get shown appreciation, like you have more of your introverts, they don't want to be shown appreciation, like shown off, like, oh look, so and so did amazing.
They don't want to be the employee of the month that has their picture on the billboard outside.
They're like mortified. Like, oh God, that did not make me feel appreciated.
Just give me the afternoon off.
Yeah, they may want that, or like, hey, good job. That's maybe all it took. Or like, so like, there's also, this is hard for a lot of leaders. I know I haven't done it perfectly at all lately too, is like checking in with your people at least once a week. So your leadership team, or maybe it depends on the size of your team, but not just like what's on your project list. Like, hey, how are you? How's the team doing? Like those type of things make a big difference for people.
Just seeing them as a person, a real person, and not just a contributor to the business.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So yeah, that's all I can think of right now. But there's so many layers that you can do. I mean, you could get real high tech like Google, like I said, and you could do nap pods, and you could do office yoga, and you could do, but I think data wise, it's like just being valued, especially like the younger generation, being valued as a person, knowing your inner strengths, knowing you are like moving the business along. You kind of have friends at work, just those basic, and then like Gallup does it like basic, and then it's like middle level needs, and then it's like the higher vision needs.
Jackie, I'm gonna need a nap pod for when we do the podcast.
I was literally just thinking I should get a nap pod for my work, my one podcast work.
You could put a little corner over there, put it in there. Okay, everyone take a break.
Yeah,
nap time.
I like those little swings that you can attach to the ceiling, and it's like a
little
cocoon.
rope, like the little rope, and like rats, and like a I know. Yeah.
I want one, just like zip. My nap pod. I would like that. The BBB is an organization that I've been involved with for a couple of years, and obviously trust and integrity is really important to me. That's why I serve on the board, and that's why I'm excited for
board chair.
This year I am the board chair.
Years ago, my business was contacted by the BBB to become a part of their business, and it seemed a lot like a pay-to-play kind of thing. Like, here's the fee, and then we'll add you to be part of the Better Business Bureau. And I was like, well, I know the integrity and trust of my own business. I don't need to be branded by the BBB to say that I have high integrity in my business. So it felt like pay to play, and I felt I was very put off by that whole concept.
I wouldn't recommend that sales approach, because it's more about like you want to join the BBB, to join this network of like accredited businesses that the brand is about trust, integrity, honesty. I mean, ethical business practices. To me, I think if it's like, it's a high quality level. So when you join our network, you're showing this is the high quality. I think what I've seen even in the last 3 months is how many businesses, unfortunately, people take advantage of people. There's businesses that don't have licensing. They don't have the proper, you hire, I'm not going to say any industries, but the things that we see every single day of how some businesses operate, I really get why the BBB came about, which is a whole story too, with Coca-Cola back in the day, to say like, okay, we're going to act this way, and then this other, that's up to them, but we are going to try to measure. Otherwise, who really is out there like...
It's like the only policing force for integrity in advertising.
But how are businesses vetted?
Oh, there's a whole process. There's a huge checklist process. So you apply, and then you fill out the application. Then our team goes, there's like 15 to 20 different items, like basic things like, do you have the proper licensing? In the initial process, we go through, like, we check the website, we're checking reviews, we're checking, are you meeting this level of excellence, that you're meeting? And these are through the association's standards. So the association, IABB, sets the standards, and then it goes down. So even the BBBs, we have to also show our metrics, show that we're operating at a BBB level and a standard. So then once they go through the whole checklist process, it's checked, they pass or they fail. If they don't pass them, then they don't go forward. Then the board, the committee or the accreditation committee, the board has to review it. And then it goes even in my hands where I'm going through checking everybody's work, approving them, and then they can officially be in the BBB. And then they're vetted ongoing. Annually, we get triggered. There's so many amazing systems in place, like so-and-so's not meeting their licensing requirements, or they have some advertising that's not quite legitimate. Like, our team is taking action. We're actually doing
constantly.
things.
Yeah, we've revoked accreditation. And
Gotcha.
Just did one not too long ago.
Because I'm kind of like Daphne. Maybe you don't think that way anymore, but I'm very skeptical of things like this because I know of so many that are just, hey, pay this monthly fee, come to our monthly meeting, and you have access to these people that do all these things for businesses first. And it's like, that doesn't mean they're good. That doesn't mean I want them. That doesn't mean I'm going to like them. It's just...
I think that's something that we've been battling for a while, is that messaging, trying to get people to understand that it's not that.
And I think it's because there are so many out there that are growing, that there's some good sized ones. I won't say any names, but...
And you have there's so many different things you could join. There's economic development, there's the chambers, there's the BBB. So it's like, I think that's where I was like, there are, but what the BBB is checking for is pretty much quality. Is like, are you also... From the consumer side, is like when you're looking to work with a business and you're going to bring someone in to redo your windows or something, go and check on bbb.org and you're going to see which businesses have been vetted and checked. And it's okay that you're not going to get taken advantage by some scam company or something. So, I mean, if you heard the phone calls we get all day long, it's crazy. People call all the time getting your younger population, your older population. So the point is these businesses have been vetted into our network to say to the consumer too, these are your safe businesses.
And whether or not they're accredited, they also get graded.
Yes.
But okay.
So we're as accredited businesses, we're members. We don't use the word members, but we pay for the organization to be able to operate, to be able to protect the consumers. So our fees pay for the website and all of the administrative operations.
Which is, we're nonprofit. We're not government either. The younger people too think we're government. We're not. Well, and to give you a story, maybe it'll help you give you an example, is that through these review process, if we get complaints and we get reviews, we're investigating the business. So it's not just we get the call okay, no, we're going to be checking with the business. Hey, do y'all know you have these reviews happening right now? oh my gosh, let me go fix it. Okay, well, that's good. You're meeting our standards. But if they're going to be like, oh, okay, and never answer us, well, then we're going to be looking into that. Why are you getting all these reviews? Like, there's one story I've heard lately, which just breaks my heart. It's a local company, and they're pretending to be a hearing aid business. But what they're really doing is getting these old people and older people into their business. They can't hear because they're there for hearing aids, filling out all this financial paperwork, and they're taking their money. Yeah, so that's the kind of thing. Like, I mean, that's where, I mean, you got to eventually, we can only regulate. We're not police. We're not enforcing.
Reporting,
but it's that, like, if someone Googled this business, they would see F rating. Like, don't go to that business. But people are getting taken advantage of. That's where it's like, that's where like my heartstrings get pulled, because like your grandma's going and losing all her finances, but she has no idea.
Well, and you can see this whenever we have a hurricane, the amount of roofers that we have in the area, like quadruples more. You know, I mean, it's
whenever
that's
there's
where I
struggle or tragedy, then good and bad shows up. You know,
Right.
So like that's kind of the point, is that you're providing this neutral party to help regulate the ethical business practices for businesses and for consumers.
So even if we've never applied, would a business name might be on the site depending on what?
And graded.
Huh.
Are you going to look yours up? Let us know before we wrap. Let us know. But I have one more question for you.
Okay.
What does living vividly mean to you?
Living vividly. Well, that's a good one. I think of, like we were talking about, is energized. Are you energized? Are you drained? Are you excited? I mean, I'm not a morning person, so I don't wake up excited in the morning. My daughter's at 5 o'clock morning, and she like wakes up like that. I'm like, oh my God. But like after that part, like, okay, I'm excited for my day. Or I think being me and knowing my strengths and being around people that I've also learned that it is so important, the people you are around. Do they lift you up, or do they make you bigger? Do they make you smaller? Think about that one a lot. So I think that's what I think of.
Yeah, I love it.
Thanks for listening to Living Vividly. If you enjoyed today's episode, please leave us a review and subscribe. We'd love to hear from you. For more resources and details from today's discussion, check out the show notes. Until next time, keep living vividly.